Welcome, everyone, to our December 14th City Council meeting. Welcome to everyone here and at home. The first thing we have is a public forum, as we always do. It's an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if you know it. The timer and light will indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. We have 26 people signed up, and first up is a member of one of our commissions, Ken Newbeck, and we'll be followed by Joseph Newton.
Good evening. I want to start off by thanking the Council for meeting with the Human Rights Commission last week and discussing some of the complex issues around homelessness. I thought it was a good, we all thought it was a good meeting and productive, and we were on the same page lots of times, which was good. There's going to be 2 motions introduced this evening that came out of our discussion last week. One is an endorsement of Housing First by the Council, and the other is the possibility of inviting Eric Tars, who's a senior human rights attorney for the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty, to consult on the removal of obstacles to people getting housing and jobs. So I got a little news from Eric in an email, which I just wanted to share with you. It's just preliminary news, and I'm just going to read you some excerpts from the email. Eric says, if Eugene does not have resources to pay for technical assistance.
Hi, it's Alan.
Oh,
hi, Alan.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. If Eugene does not have resources to pay for technical assistance, Eric says we can provide some help, some amount of help. Obviously, we have to prioritize our funded work, but based on Eugene's interest in more extensive technical assistance, we could also look for outside funding to support our work. We could start with a little free consultation with the city by phone video conference for initial conversations and to sketch out possible larger plans. And from that point, we'd be open to working with the city to develop a proposal to pitch to philanthropic donors and/or federal and state dollars. And he closes out, bottom line, we're a nonprofit trying to cover the cost of our work, not a for-profit consultant trying to make a living off others' tax dollars. Ideally, we'd like to be able to work with the city to fundraise for it, so there's no direct cost to the city for services. And we don't want cost to be a barrier to constructive engagement, so we're open to working with the city to find something that's mutually agreeable. So I thought you'd be interested in that information. Thank you.
Next up is Joseph Newton, followed by Roger Hall.
Hi, Joseph Newton Whitaker. A few years ago, I came before you and I provided some pivotal arguments in favor of extending the Urban Renewal District. One of my pivotal arguments was that this would help restore the commons downtown, and Mayor Piercy, I think you recall that you expressed some resonance with that. When we're talking about the commons in our city core, the most classic commons is the town square. Right now, that's Kesey Square. That town square has deep meaning in our culture. If you ascribe to Western culture, which I think most of us here seem to have as a core of our lifestyle, and we're tracing it back. You trace back the origins, the philosophical origins, actually the pursuit of knowledge, since all knowledge was philosophy, from Alexander and his travels, his conquests, through Aristotle, Plato, and guess what you arrive? You arrive at a working man, a stone cutter, idle stone cutter, because he's sitting there in the city square talking to a bunch of idle kids and misleading them as the respectable people of that community, clearly thought, since they ended up forcing him to drink hemlock to end his life because he was misleading the youth. This is where the pursuit of knowledge in Western culture comes from, folks. It comes from having a town square. Having anybody, that town square like ours was used by city fathers for events. And at the same time, those town squares throughout history have also been the place where the idle, the wanderer, the people who have no other way to connect come to get together, to connect with resources, to share ideas and knowledge, and guess what? To teach and learn together. We actually saw that. We saw that demonstrated in Occupy, which was a damned successful experiment in community, however it has been twisted since then. We see it every time the homeless come together to create homes and shelter for each other. And this comes from having a town square. Right now we have a jewel of a town square. We have Kesey. We pulled out some really nice attractions. The balcony was nice. We've done some intentional damage to the hospitality of the space, but we still have a very flexible space, and it's what we have. It should be preserved.
Thank you. Next up is Roger Hall, followed by Dr. Francis Day.
Thank you. Mayor Piercy, members of the council, my name is Roger Hall. I was an elected member of the Board of Education at Lane Community College for 20 years. So I've been in your chair. I know what it's like to pass a budget. I know what it's like to try to allocate funds through a whole complex area of endeavor, as you do. I also know that every program has a committed lobby and fierce advocacy. I also know that there are contingency funds which can be used in times of a budgetary emergency. Now, I think we have a budgetary emergency, and I think it's called the Holt Center and the Jacobs Gallery. I'm not trying to sell you on art, but I am trying to sell you on the integrity of the Holt Center, which saw roughly 140,000 people last year, and is a cultural hub of the city. The Jacobs Gallery has become an integral part of that endeavor. And I'd like to quote briefly from our own website. Quote, "The city of Eugene is rich in culture and arts. The renowned Jacobs Gallery displays curated visual arts exhibits that bring patrons and visitors to the center during the day and prior to performances." I agree with what we say. The gallery last year had 10,500 visitors and sold thousands of dollars worth of art. I'd like to repeat that, 10,500 visitors, and we're about to close it down. I want to say that for $150,000, which is a minuscule portion of the entire city budget, and less than 2% of the $6 million portion of the budget allocated for culture and art, we could fund the Jacobs Gallery. The gallery, with very little city support last year, has been run by a dedicated director, Beverly Sosi, and a board of directors, dedicated board of directors led by Ann Carter. If we shut this gallery down, it will not be easily reopened. To find someone like Beverly or a board of directors with the same talent and dedication as the current board, I think would be virtually impossible. Finally, I'd like to say that I've been members of boards that have had the wisdom and courage to modify previous decisions. I'm hopeful that you will rethink this issue.
Thank you.
And have the wisdom and courage to do so and fund the Jacobs Gallery. Thank you.
Dr. Francis
Thank you very
Day
much.
is next, followed by Cameron Fox.
Hello. I'm Dr. Frances Day. I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm a retired physician from California, and I've made Eugene my home for the last 5 years, and I would really like to see us take a strong leadership role in dealing with the climate issues that are the most important thing threatening all of our futures. So that Eugene is outstanding, and it could be even better, and it should be done as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron Fox is next, followed by Wesley Georgiev.
Hello, City Council members. I'm Cameron Fox, and I'm here today to discuss a very important and relevant issue, climate change. Last year, Eugene passed a law to reduce our carbon footprint. That was a huge success. But what good is a law without enforcement? After 1877, African Americans had the right to vote by the letter of the law. But does that mean that that right was enforced and upheld? In the 1920s, almost all alcohol was banned. Yet does that mean that drunks ceased to exist? Indeed, many laws are passed but not upheld. I'm here tonight to urge you to uphold the law that you passed last year. The talks in Paris may have ended, but that does not mean the threat is over with. Climate change impacts all aspects of life, from job security to terrorism. By not upholding the law, you will be condemning the present and future citizens of the city. People think of global warming as affecting someone else somewhere else. That is not the case. Climate change is affecting us here and now. The only way to somewhat lessen the problem of global warming is to reduce carbon emissions by enforcing laws against burning fossil fuels. In conclusion, enforce the carbon law for the sake of everyone.
Thank you. Wesley Georgiev, followed by Karina McWilliams.
Hello, Mayor and ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. My name is Wesley Georgiev, and I am a sophomore and founder of the EG 350 Club at South Eugene High School, and I live in Ward 3. I'd like to extend my gratitude to Mayor Piercy for coming and speaking at the Global March for Climate Solutions a couple weeks ago. Since then, a lot has happened regarding climate change worldwide. The COP21 conferences in Paris during the last few weeks have been highlighted with the words 1.5 degrees. However, the original draft proposal by the French president was full of the words welcoming, recognizing, acknowledging, emphasizing, stressing, and agreeing. Our city has done all of these to face climate change, but the last, to agree. We have the opportunity to lead this movement. If we implement the Climate Recovery Ordinance, many other cities, states, and quite possibly our own country will follow us. Do you want to be remembered as the leaders who pioneered our country in the right direction, or the leaders who passed a climate ordinance but didn't do anything with it? The ordinance is mandatory and binding. It's time to use it. Thank you.
Karina McWilliams is next, followed by Julia Olson.
Good evening. My name is Karina McWilliams. I live in Ward 3. I'm also a sophomore at South Eugene High School, as well as a representative of the Earth Guardians 350 Club at South. I'm here to request direct action from the City Council regarding climate change, specifically the Climate Recovery Ordinance. This Saturday marked the last day of the COP21 summit in Paris, where world leaders met the objective to finalize legally binding agreement on climate change. In the media, the end results of the conference are displayed as a turning point in human history, salvation in the face of the rapidly deteriorating climate. But the truth is, the conference did not bring the universally binding legal agreement that we had all hoped for, instead bringing loose promises to decrease carbon emissions to a still inadequate level, while also lacking a sufficient timeline. This failure in Paris only emphasizes the monumental steps that remain to be taken in order to ensure a healthy and livable climate for all future generations. However, unlike COP21, Eugene has already created an enforceable, legally binding contract, which is the Climate Recovery Ordinance. In many ways, Eugene serves as the epicenter of the ongoing climate change revolution. Just a few weeks ago, thousands of eyes around the world were drawn to Eugene in light of its People's Climate March. only adding to the existing attention on Eugene and its aggressive ordinance on climate change. Fully implementing this ordinance would serve as an example to the rest of the country in terms of the imperative actions that need to be advanced. Every living thing is entitled to a viable future, and in order to ensure this, we have to act now. So I implore the City Council to push the climate recovery ordinance into action immediately. Thank you.
Julia Olson is next, followed by Mariah Roth.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. I'm Julia Olson, and I'm in Betty Taylor's ward. On Friday, I was in a class with a bunch of third graders, and they were making their wishes for the new year. More than half wished for snow. Others wished for the less fortunate among us to have food, shelter, and family. These children of our community reflected in those few moments our basic human needs: water, food, shelter, and love. They voiced a collective compassion. Would any of you deny them any of those things? I don't think any of you would consciously choose to do so, but every week we live beyond our carbon means. And every week we surpass our carbon budget. We are doing just that. Sorry, it's been a hard weekend. All right, I'm going to try to finish here. Sorry. This is a dark time, both seasonally and existentially. And as you celebrate your holiday and your religious traditions, and you reflect on your life and light in a dark time, I would ask that you do your part to fight the biggest fight we have of our lives right now, to secure a climate that is stable and livable for all of the world's children. You are keepers and trustees of our city, and it is your duty, your solemn duty, to lead us into that light. And I ask that you take that to heart, because we are counting on each and every one of you as individuals, including you, City Manager. And I want your executive team to implement that ordinance, because we fought hard as a community for it, and we cannot let our children down. Thank you.
Mariah Roth is next, followed by Sage Fox.
Good evening, Mayor Piercy and City Councilor. Ooh, these always make me a little nervous. I'm here this evening to do a performance piece. Did I say my full name? I did. Mariah Konschnitsky-Roth. And I am a survivor of, 7-year survivor of brain illness. And I want to dedicate, but I'm here tonight in support of the work that you have been doing and will continue to do to make sure that everyone in our community has a roof over their head. This piece is dedicated to Betty, who is a nanogenarian who has been living in Eugene for many years, and many of you probably know her. So I dedicate this piece to Betty. And now I'm going to cue the music, and I'm going to go turn it on.
Close to
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Next up is Sage Fox, followed by Zealand Bell and Ben Laudes, it looks like.
Hello, I am Sage Fox, and I'm here again to ask you to take action on the climate recovery ordinance with my classmates. Since this is the last city council meeting of the year, I assume at least most of you, hopefully some of you, are going to go on some great vacations this winter, and probably some of you will also be enjoying the snow this winter. And I know I will. I am a Nordic ski racer for my high school, and I like going up to the snow every weekend, especially when it's here in town, which hasn't happened for a while. And every year, our snow levels have been declining due to climate change, and I would love to see snow keep coming for many decades to come, and I would love to be able to teach young kids how to ski when I'm older. And so for the sake of the snow and continuing to have wonderful winter vacations for a long time to come, I would ask that you guys continue to take good action and please implement the climate recovery ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Zealand and Ben, you're up next, and then Teo after that. You can stand or sit, whichever works for you.
Hello, I am Zealand Bell and I'm 11 years old.
Hi, I'm Ben Lowndes and I am 12.
Last year I came to talk to you about the climate ordinance, and we are happy that you passed the law. You have passed the law, but we have noticed that you have not done what you said you would. And we really need you to take action now on Eugene's climate ordinance.
Last year we did not get snow because of climate change. This year I am hopeful for snow. The City Council passed a law, but they have not acted. Please enforce that law.
Thank you.
Thank you. Teo Olson's up next, followed by somebody whose name is Jensen.
Hi, I'm Taya Olson, and in July 2014, this council took action and adopted the Climate Recovery Ordinance. The Climate Recovery Ordinance is the first in the country to require carbon neutrality, fossil fuel use reductions, and development of a carbon budget based on the best available science. Specifically, this council required that the city manager's proposal for council approval targets benchmarks of numerical greenhouse gas and fossil fuel reductions. Moreover, to ensure that city would achieve the requirement reductions, this council reserves the right to require any other actions that the council determines are necessary. So far, the city has refused to submit for approval the Climate Recovery Ordinance, required benchmark proposals, and carbon budget. This is unacceptable. These proposals in this budget are the first steps toward completing the Climate Recovery Ordinance. We need this council to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I can't read the first name, but it's Jensen, followed by Deborah McGee.
Hello, my name is Asger Bjørnfeld Jensen, and I'm an exchange student at South Eugene High School and a member of EG 350. In my home in Denmark, I've never seen wildfires. I've never experienced a winter without snowball fights. Growing up in Denmark, we watched a lot of American movies, mostly set in California. The sunshine, the palm trees, the surfing and swimming, all felt like paradise to me. Now I realize that if climate ever came to Denmark, the country I know would be lost. Fish are the fourth fastest growing Danish export, and the world famous Danish fisheries would collapse if the ocean temperature increased by even 1 degree more. I've seen what's happening to the salmon in Oregon, as well as the recent drought. I'm not only thinking of myself or my own future. It's important to me that future generations in Denmark and all over the world have a healthy planet. I applaud the Eugene City Council for passing the Climate Recovery Ordinance. I urge you to implement this vital policy as soon as possible, because when I go back home to Denmark, I want to know that my friends here will always have the life that everyone deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome here from Denmark.
Thanks.
Deborah McGee is next, followed by Corio Ridley White.
My name is Deborah McGee, and I've lived at 29755 Lusk Road for 30 years. I want to speak about the Climate Recovery Ordinance, and I think there are some other folks here tonight for that reason, right? If you want to stand up or show your hands. Great. So 2 weeks ago, I attended the Sustainability Commission meeting, and I listened to city employee Kurt Yeiter show slides and discuss the upcoming City of Eugene Transportation System Plan. He mentioned that it was a draft and that it was congruent with the Envision Eugene program. The part that I found highly disturbing was a statement that the Climate Recovery Ordinance was an aspirational goal and that the plan he presented would not meet those goals. I can believe that because the plan included discussion to make Beltline 8 lanes of traffic, enabling and increasing fossil fuel use, not reducing it. This council, representing the citizens of our city, made the moral choice and passed this ordinance to create a more livable future. Now we are at the hard part, implementation. It is time for the city manager to direct city staff to create the plans, to begin the transition to reduce carbon and move to cleaner energy. We can implement the Climate Recovery Ordinance and reduce carbon emissions 50% by 2030. And we will do it because other communities can learn from us and do likewise because Eugene leads the way. I will continue to attend the Sustainability Commission meetings, and I expect not aspirational goals, but rather goals that the city is willing to actually meet. Thank you.
Corio Ridley White, excuse me, murdered your name totally. Apologize.
Good evening. My name is Corio Ridley White. I'm here to discuss the CRO, the Climate Recovery Ordinance, by way of comparing youth action with elected and appointed official action. As you've heard discussed here back in the fall of 2013, the young people of Eugene came together to form the You Can campaign, where they tirelessly, week after week, came here and testified before you all. They held rallies, they wrote letters, they produced murals and videos, they drafted language for the CRO. The following year, you guys enacted that CRO. And we should celebrate the youth for pushing the CRO and the council for enacting it. They're both noteworthy and bold acts. But let's not lose sight of why our youth had to undertake such acts in the first place, because no one else was. As empowering as civic involvement is, and studies show it is very empowering, should we be proud that in order to keep this issue and on your radar, our kids need to show up on school nights to testify? Should we celebrate the fact that our youth are still spending their weekends protesting proposed destructive actions being taken by this state rather than playing with their friends on the weekends? As courageous as they are for doing so, what does it say about our system that the youth of this country have to sue their federal government to try and guarantee their constitutional rights? What about a world where the youth go to Paris not for the opportunity to learn about the art, history, and culture, but to beg our world leaders to care about the place we all call home? Look, I applaud all the youth for being here. They should participate, but they should do so by choice, not because they have to. They shouldn't do so to have to protect their lives, because that's what we're here for. We should protect their lives, and we're not. Now, on Saturday, my family and I participated in a wonderful event down at the Holiday Market, the Eugene Red Line Climate Visual. There, my 5-year-old son was able to learn the basics of climate change, and he learned about the role our elected officials play in acting and ensuring environmental protections. After the visual, with genuine concern on his face, my son asked me, what if they, those in power, what if they don't stop the destruction of this planet? I said, oh, they will. He wasn't so easily placated. He continued, he said, "But what are you going to do if they don't?" I said, "I'll keep showing up." That's what I told him. I said, "I'll keep talking, I'll keep writing, I'll keep betting the best available science out there." I told him that I, along with others, won't stop. See, we raise our kids to operate in a paradigm, one where our children, in the search of stability and... Thank you.
Patty Hine is next, followed by Lori Powell.
My name is Patricia Hine, and I live in the county, and Eugene is my home. I'm a retired Navy veteran. It's been my experience that in order to achieve big things, it's small teams of people with great motivation, integrity, and skill working very hard who get the job done. Such teams share important values to which they vow to bear true faith and allegiance. Teams of people like you who are committed to work for the benefit of citizens of Eugene. Thank you. We're on the same team. Now that the UN climate talks are over, we're more or less pleased that almost 200 nations have agreed to work together to limit the worst effects of climate change. Each country should take steps to transition off dirty fossil fuel energy and finance a swift transition to 100% clean energy. It's 100% possible. It's been a long time coming. We've waited for an agreed-upon plan since the first climate summits in 1995. Taking the first step on such ambitious plans can be very difficult, but now we're ready in earnest. Analogously, in Eugene, we have a climate recovery ordinance, which is better in some sense than the climate treaty because it's at least legally binding. Now we all know that there are many laws passed which stand on the books unimplemented. Some temporary show of political will for some temporary purpose. There are even Navy regulations, some of which may not be implemented all the time, although I would not want to be caught not implementing one. Here in Eugene, we have an amazing opportunity to really step up and be a national leader. Our climate recovery ordinance is game-changing and takes up these steps to truly lower carbon pollution, life-saving steps. And like any first step, they're not easy. A carbon budget that brings our lives back into a healthy balance with scientific limits on carbon emissions is going to mean big changes. We might even have to start living at the same level of convenience as Europeans. It could be, though, the most rewarding work we've ever undertaken. When people work together on such unprecedented challenges, an emergency, really, it's an opportunity for us to grow and distinguish ourselves. We have vision, we have creativity. We can distinguish ourselves for our strength, endurance, and even our bravery. I think we have those in great supply. I think the young people do. So if implementing the climate recovery ordinance requires sacrifice...
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lori Powell is next, followed by Jennifer Frenzer.
Hello, my name is Lori Powell, and I live in Ward 1. George Brown is my counselor. As a member of 350 Eugene, I want to thank the City Council for passing Eugene's landmark climate recovery ordinance last year. On the coattails of the historic Paris Climate Agreement, we know that probably the only way each country will meet their voluntary carbon reduction targets is to act decisively and expediently within clearly defined, legally binding, scientifically based carbon budgets at the local level. The City of Eugene is poised to do just that and to be a model for our country, not just in theory, but in practice. I encourage each counselor and Manager Ruiz to redouble your efforts in working out the details of the ordinance, particularly heading into Wednesday's work session on this topic. We all very much look forward to hearing of your progress and doing whatever we can to support you in this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Frenzer is next, followed by Allison Halderman.
My name is Jennifer Frenzer-Knowlton, and I'm in Betty Taylor's ward. I wanted to thank you all who attended the Human Rights Commission award ceremony. Alan Zelinka and Greg Evans and John for giving the award to Occupy Medical for their human rights work. It was an enjoyable event, and we'll see you all again next year. OM has done outstanding work in our community, and their volunteers are fantastic human rights workers. I also would like to speak tonight about last week's work session and express my gratitude again for your attendance with the Human Rights Commission and my hopefulness about our continuing that dialogue. I saw in the news that the West Coast Mayor's Conference is building an alliance and building momentum for looking at solutions to funding for some of the major efforts to solve homelessness, eliminate homelessness. Here, our volunteers are showing up in droves to assist at Egan Warming Center and at hundreds in town hall meetings to discuss solutions, and online signing petitions for public shelter. So the federal government agencies are similarly making mandates. They have the Department of Justice, the Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, the U.S. Interagency on Homelessness are opposing criminalization and embracing housing first approach and evidence-based approaches to the problems. It makes sense that our community uses the momentum we have amongst our community members to innovate and to create our own solutions instead of having solutions dictated to us. So I'm encouraging the council to support the two motions that came out of the work session. One, to consult legal experts in homelessness at the National Law Center or similarly skilled lawyers, and two, to adopt Housing First officially as our approach. Sleeping is a public health issue. And lastly, I request that the City Council encourage people to not get harassed while they are sleeping, whether they're in their cars, not to be cited, not to be trespassed. If they're not disturbing someone, please let them sleep. Thank you.
Allison Halderman is next, followed by Todd Kaiser.
Hi, my name is Allison Halderman. I've never done this before. I'm kind of nervous. I'm from a resident of Ward 7, Claire Sretz, and I grew up in Eugene. I'm a mother, grandmother, educator, and a caregiver. I'm here to support the implementation of the climate ordinance recovery. Some of the testimony here touched into my deepest feelings as a grandmother, but I just wanted to not repeat what everyone else has said, but to suggest to the city employees and manager and the councilors that you remember that small is also beautiful. I also did the Citizens Emergency Response Training, so I tend to think in terms of disaster resilience, and I love those elegant solutions that solve more than one problem. Just like local food both reduces carbon emissions and strengthens our economy, it also provides a certain amount of resilience in that we don't have to ship, if something goes wrong with shipping or goes wrong far away, it doesn't affect us. So a small suggestion as an example, in Hurricane Sandy, this guy drove his solar mobile array out there and people used it to plug their cell phones in. So if the city can think about things like, if we can partner with the schools, his suggestion was that these be parked at schools to provide quiet small contributions to some form of their electricity needs all the time, and in an emergency, you don't need to get oil into a generator to keep it going. Mobile might not be the best, but that kind of like little stuff in a disaster. A little bit of solar can do a whole lot in terms of keeping people safe because they can plug their cell phones in. So just think small, look for solutions, and remember that implementing the climate recovery ordinance can lead to a whole lot of great benefits besides reducing carbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Todd Kieser is next, followed by Michael Kerrigan.
Hi, my name is Todd Kieser, and I'm in George Polling's ward. I'm here to talk about the homeless issue. In October, Mayor Piercy asked the governor to declare an emergency. That's the state where we're at now with homelessness. And I was glad to hear from my friends who advocate for homeless and the human rights that you're looking at these two resolutions. But I also don't want to see these two resolutions hold up ongoing progress. The ongoing criminalization of homelessness, and that's what it is. People want to say that we're not doing that, and it's just not true. We are criminalizing them. If they can't sleep and they get arrested, that's criminalizing. We're also citing them for criminal trespass. That's criminalization. If I fell asleep downtown, which one of you think I'm going to get arrested? It's not going to happen. And if I do, they're just going to send me home. So don't use these resolutions as positive as they may be as an excuse to not take action and prevent the criminalization of homelessness, and to stop doing that. It doesn't make our community better, and it doesn't improve the life outcomes for the people who are on the street today. Our current criminalization of homelessness is not even a good use of tax dollars. That case has been made, I know, in front of you many times before. Boise and Salt Lake City have already proven this out. In addition, it worsens life outcomes while not solving anything. If it solved anything, we wouldn't be calling for an emergency from the governor. This solution has been proven not to work, so why do we keep investing in it? What I will end with is just to say, quote one of the young people who were up here earlier about climate change, and I support everything said today about climate change as well. Every living thing is entitled to a viable future. That includes the people who don't have shelter. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Kerrigan is next, followed by Linda Kelly.
My name is Michael Kerrigan. I work for Community Alliance in Lane County, and I'm a proud resident of Ward 7. Cal strongly supports Councilor Brown's motion that calls on the council to invite a representative from the National Center on Homelessness to meet for the subcommittee of the City Council and the HRC. For example, we feel that the city should not be ticketing people for sleeping, not only because it violates their human rights, because it may make it more difficult for them to find housing and to find work. Hopefully Eric Tarr is one of those smart people that Councilor Zelenka said we should tap into at the last session, or is that you, Councilor Pryor, sorry, said that I think bringing Eric Tars to town would be a great thing for Eugene. At Calc, we have a family now as part of the car camping program who is in their vehicle. A few weeks ago, the mother of the family testified here. They had their vehicle, the police were going to tow it, and then they ended up getting a $1,000 fine. What's the impact on this family? It's going to make it more difficult them to find housing, to find work. They're safely at Calc now, but we just need to stop giving people tickets for sleeping. Calc also support Councilor Evans' resolution declaring the City of Eugene's commitment to Housing First. I believe that the Housing First public shelter is the ultimate answer. Down to Dust, the rest stops, car camping program, and more are innovative and successful programs. They are great. We're an example to the world. But as the mayor said at the HRC City Council work session, these programs are a Band-Aid. We need that public shelter. It has public support. Hundreds of people have signed that petition that's online. It will ultimately cut costs because right now there's costs for public safety. And scores of people will be off the streets and in housing. I'm going to give an example of Roger, who is a person been in back of Kelk for a couple of years. He now has an apartment, and he's thriving. He did okay in the Conestoga Hut, but it's made such a huge difference in his life. I'd like to think we can do that for hundreds more people in this community, and we'll be another example of a innovative community that's kind of pulling out all the stops to help the unhoused. And finally, I want to thank city staff and county staff. The Nightingale Health Sanctuary has moved back to the Lane County Behavioral Health. The move has gone really well, and it was a collaboration example of the homeless advocates, the city and the county coming together. It works. It makes a difference. Let's do more of that in the year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Kelly's next, followed by Sabra Marcroft.
Hi, I'm in Ward 1, and I would like to speak to the climate recovery ordinance. It's the first time I've spoken, so I'm a little unsure. This will be brief. I just wanted to say I've lived here for probably about 15 years, and then I had left for 6 years to watch my grandchildren, and I've just come back. And although I was sad to leave them, I was excited to come back. I was retiring and had heard what Eugene was doing about climate. And one of the harder things that I experienced with my grandchildren was my 9-year-old is now really aware of climate change, and just sort of being aware of how that feels for a 9-year-old to have that on their horizon was challenging for me. So I'm now involved in 350, and I know that this is what I want to do, is work on climate-related issues. Two things. One is very practical. I've been trying to ground myself in the work that you're doing on the ordinance, and I've gotten online, and what I'd like to ask you is, could you have something online that really gives us sort of details, timelines, ways that we can contribute in some way to the work that's being done and the specific ideas that are happening? I think there's some plans and programs in different parts of the country that I know of and that others do, and I would love it if we were able to help you to move along with this. The other thing I would just like to say, with solstice coming, that this is the time of year to let go of the things from the old year that you want to leave behind and bring in what you'd like to in the new year. So I encourage you all to let go of the idea that this is going to be difficult and complicated and a real struggle, and to just really bring in the fact that we know we have to do this. There's just not a choice. We have to do this, and we'll just find a way to do it and pull in all your resources from the community, and let's just get it done. Thank you.
Sabra Marcroft is next, followed by Emily Simple.
Hi, I'm Sabra Marcroft. I'm mainly here tonight to say thank you. I wanted to say thank you first to City Manager John Reese. Thank you very much for coming and giving that award to Occupy Medical. It meant a lot to all of us to see you there. Thank you. And I wanted to say thank you to each one of you, City Council members and Mayor Piercy, for continuing to stretch in the direction of meeting the enormous human need that's out there. Thank you for not hardening your hearts. So with a thank you, also comes another ask, which is, at this darkest time of the year, please reach deep inside your heart and your conscience and find whatever you can personally and in your positions in the community do to relieve the suffering of those who are still without shelter. As I mentioned last time, we're still not at 10%. And there are things that we can do as a community to make it easier on the ones that we can't provide shelter for yet. Some other people have already mentioned several of them, and I'm sure you can think of more. Thank you.
Emily Semple is next, followed by Kathy Ging.
Good evening. I'm Emily Semple. I live in downtown Eugene. It's been raining. It's been raining and pouring. It's cold and it's raining. The soil is saturated. Every little air pocket is filled with water. The roots are not getting aerated. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, the park blocks are watered. Sometimes people are sleeping there. They're already wet. This is unkind. They weren't even causing trouble. Now, in my e-web bill, the more water I use, the more money it costs. So we don't have enough money to pay for the library out of general taxes because we use MUPTs for more housing, and we don't have enough money for a shelter, but we have enough money to water the park blocks early in the morning. We need rest stops. We need them now. How about City Hall? It's already got gravel, good drainage, it's got a fence. I read that it's supposed to start construction in a couple weeks, but is that really going to happen? And until then, let people sleep there and don't turn on the sprinklers. We need a shelter. We just have to have a shelter to solve these problems. I'm asking you to please put money in the budget for a shelter. If we can water the park blocks, because people are lying down, we can afford a shelter. Thank you.
Kathy Ging is next, followed by Drix.
Kathy Ging, Alan Zaleika's ward. All are invited to Friday, December 18th, noon. City Club will have a presentation at Downtown Athletic Club on the future of Kesey Square. $5 for non-members. And my comments are my comments, not those of the City Club. Preserve Kesey Square. Why council should not approve sale of Kesey Square to a private party for erection of apartments. 1. It would be an anomalous policy and unsatisfactory precedent if council allowed Kesey statue removal and plaza reappropriation. A visionary council dedicated that space to Kesey, and does each new council get to rename public monuments and spaces? 2. Wall Street Journal and New York Times reporters are writing about Kesey Square fiasco. It may be a black eye for us. The New York Times reporter, raised in Eugene, interviewed locals last week, remarking that if a notion proposing to privatize Central Park unfolded in New York, a huge uproar would result. Will apartments in Alton Baker and other parks be next? Can anyone on a whim offer to buy public property not even for sale? 3. It is no surprise that there has been a huge public uproar. Kesey Square, not so fast. Quote, Register Guard editorial. Why not seek input from landscape architecture firms about what they would do with the square? Connect with faculty at U of O. Ask if student teams could design options as part of classwork. Announce a design competition and advertise in an industry publication and websites. Unquote. An overwhelming majority of letters to the editor by non-economically motivated citizens advised council not to privatize it, as proposed by rural Blockville architects who are involved in Eugene City Hall design. Closing Kesey Square would eliminate the plaza's fresh air, sunlight, and openness. A unique, attractive, multi-use part of our beautiful downtown would be mere memory, writes Bill Winkley in a letter. Number 4, anyone in design of neighborhoods, websites, books recognizes the need for desirable aesthetic open space. You may have, but maybe the public has not seen the downtown map, including purple blocks called public spaces, only at the Halt and library walkways, park blocks, and Kesey Square. Conspicuous by its absence are open spaces. To shut down this one would be the ultimate in myopic planning. Number 5, years ago, a Portland appraiser suggested in an appraisal of the Ridenour building, formerly next to Wow Hall, that the major deterrent to more business operating in that area was the activity surrounding the Wow Hall. We're talking about our young people, folks. Deja vu. Are we now shifting blame from Wow to Kesey Square? Thank you.
Rick Schurup, and then comes Joan Cleben.
Hey, Eugene, it's good to see you. Hi, Alan.
Probably there somewhere.
Oh, we welcome. Sorry. It's good to be here. I'm glad to be getting in to see you guys for the end of the year. Interesting thing here. I'll relax before I talk. It's my 3 minutes. I was walking here down High Street, and I needed to cross High Street, and wait a minute. Sometimes we just seem like down-home people, don't we? I forgot my bag. Well, I was crossing the streets, and every time I came to the street, they would just stop right in the middle of the street. Not professing jaywalking, but I just can't figure why people would be doing that. The whole family waves at me, and the driver just will not go on no matter what, and I wave, and I'm just clueless to it, but I really do appreciate it. Probably stop in January, the way things go. Well, maybe looking like this, I should play the role a little bit. And I guess one of the things that people do with long hair and gray beards and red hats and hoeing is giving gifts. So I would like to give you a gift, Eugene. How do you do that? Well, it's got to be really small, but large and fit in this microphone. And lucky I've brought it with me. So what it is we're all facing the same future, which is pretty much still unknown. But we've seen a lot of futures, which we call history now. And sometimes things work really well, and sometimes they're kind of rugged. And looks like we've got a big bunch of rugged coming on with our resources and our time and our population. And so what I was thinking is that it would be nice to kind of solve a lot of these now before things get crazy, while this is relatively peaceful time. So if we could connect more as a community, I think that'd be a lot more fun. As a review of how uncrazy my thoughts usually are, we got rid of time with the internet. You write a note at one time and someone reads it at a different time. And when you use the word now, it's, well, like now. Here I am speaking to you. This feels like now, but if you're watching it on our cable system 1,000 times over December, those all become now. And so now has been redefined. Another term is place. Yeah, here we are. I'm right here and you're there, but when you're at home on your couch watching this, you're there, which is here. So in the spirit of that, I'd like to introduce the word you. And I'd like us just to rethink you. Usually everybody is you that's not me, which is you. So that word is used a lot and it's around us. So my gift is to just relook at that word when you say Merry Christmas to you. And I mean it. Thank you.
Joan Cleveland is next.
Thank you. I'm Joan Cleban. I've been a Eugene resident for 39 years in George Brown's district currently. I attended the forum that the city ran on December 2nd about downtown, about upward spaces, about the importance it is to listen to all of us now and again in what we have to think about. And I was really impressed both with the presentation, with Kitty's opening speeches about how we wanted positive input, about listening to a number of different people who really did come to what I felt was much of a consensus about our feelings about downtown. And I've recently been working at Ali Amami's Northwest Persian Rug Store. We're hosting a holiday bazaar in his space for 6 days this December. I'm interested in understanding more from Mr. Ruiz city staff about what it is that Mr. Amami needs to present to the city to be seriously considered about opening up the walls of his buildings. We've had a few discussions over the last week, and it's very unclear to me what the conditions are, what the holdup is. He's had the same idea and several proposals for the last 20 years, and it would be really a powerful thing, I think, to work together, to bring together our diverse and compassionate and considerate, thoughtful intentions with downtown Eugene to keep Kesey Square open, to work with the man who owns the perimeter of the square itself, and create a real heart in the center of our city. I'm a New Englander by birth. I think common space and commons in any town and in urban environment are extremely important. To continue with the open space is a very major and vital piece of meeting. I enjoyed several of the comments that have been coming through in the paper and on Facebook, where we get all our news now and then.
Or not.
Working or not, yeah. Retired or not, so it's all a question. So in building community with the action and the diversity that we embrace in Eugene, let's really work with the person who is, if we can look at what he has to propose and give it a strong consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank everybody for coming this evening and speaking out so eloquently on so many topics. Appreciate it very, very much. And I'm going to ask council to any comments. Seeing none, on behalf of all of us, thank you. We'll move. Alan's on? Did he want?
No, Councilor Taylor.
Councilor Taylor.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who came, and I hope that we will save Kesey Square. We'll work with I hope we'll work with Mr. Imami to do to incorporate his ideas into saving it. I have a question about the Jacobs Gallery. The speaker said, could we rethink it? I don't think council decided to close it. Who did decide to close the Jacobs Gallery?
They were unable to financially support themselves. And on Wednesday, we will be, as part of your work session, we'll also be prepared to talk about Jacobs Gallery.
So that it's possible it can remain open, right?
I think let's talk about that on Wednesday, because I don't know enough of the details that would be helpful at the moment.
Thank you. That's all.
Right, we're moving on with the agenda then. We did the consent calendar at 5:30, so we're at item number 3, public hearing and action on a resolution adopting the supplemental budget. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is a required public hearing for the first FY16 supplemental budget. This supplemental budget recognizes new revenue, marginal beginning working capital, and authorizes other unanticipated changes in legal appropriations. Approval is requested tonight in order to allow for necessary legal appropriations, and we have staff available to answer questions.
I'm going to open the public hearing and give this person the information about how to do this, since I think he knows it pretty well. This would be John Borofsky. John.
Yeah.
Can he mute? Just move the microphone. Back if he wants to say something.
Okay. He's excited by your presentation, John.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Councilors. My name is John Borofsky, Ward 3. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on the supplemental budget before you. As you all well know, supplemental budgets are most often house cleaning measures to adjust appropriations and fund balances. However, they can also be a sign of trends or items to take note of for further review. This budget, in my view, has a few items that are of note. As you'll see, the marginal beginning working capital is a negative number for the first time in many years. As long as I can remember, we haven't had a negative marginal beginning working capital at SB1. The amount is small compared with the overall budget, and this is a testament to the ability of the finance staff in their preparations of estimates for the year. The second thing I would like you to be aware of is the fact that the city manager is proposing that the capital transfer of $900,000 that is historically taken from the marginal beginning working capital in accordance with financial policy B11 will be funded with money from the reserve for revenue shortfall. I believe that this is absolutely appropriate and that you as a council, as well as the budget committee, should look at building this appropriation into the proposed budget in the beginning of your budget process, rather than using marginal beginning working capital for this. In the approved budget, there are goals and policies, and the second service priority directly after public safety is maintaining and replacing the city's fixed assets to optimize their lives. The city does a good job of capital preservation, but needs to keep an eye on it. Industry standards suggest that 2 to 4% of replacement value is the target for a preservation funding. The budget approved has a level of 1.3%, and the funding gap has increased every year over the last 10 years. The road fund is a good example of how fast deferring maintenance can spiral out of control. I'll hope you keep this in mind when next year's budget cycle begins. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you on these important issues facing the city of Eugene.
Thank you. We close the public hearing. I'm going to ask if there are any questions or comments from City Council. Councilor Clark?
Yeah, just really quickly, I had the privilege to serve on the Budget Committee for 2 years before being on council, and this next year will be my 10th. And so it's a dozen years now that I've sat through budgets and Budget Committee hearings and processes, and I can't remember a time where John Borofsky wasn't a part of the process, reminding us of something that we hadn't thought about, or giving us a new thought we hadn't thought about, or keeping us on track when he was chair. And I just want to say I think our community is really fortunate to have you come in and give us your thoughts on the supplemental stuff, too. It takes real dedication to do it, and I appreciate it very much. We're all better for it. Thanks, John.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. So we have a motion here.
I move to adopt Resolution 5145, adopting a supplemental budget, making appropriations for the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2015, and ending June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Okay. So all those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
8 in favor, none in opposition. It passes. Thank you. I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the Eugene City Council, and I'm going to convene the meeting of the Eugene Urban Renewal Agency. And do we have anybody signed up for that? I thought we might.
That's why he never left.
City Manager, I assume you'd just be saying the same thing again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing and call up John Borofsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Councilors. Thanks for the opportunity to address you on the supplemental budget before you. I know that urban renewal districts can be a controversial issue. However, I would like to take some time to point out the good things that the Downtown Urban Renewal Agency has been able to accomplish. We all know of some of the projects that were helped along by the use of this funding tool. Our great new library, filling the pits, LCC downtown, as well as many others. The district has helped to revitalize downtown. In 2010, the City Council made a decision to let the district terminate after funding of identified projects has occurred. At the time, I feel that was a decision that may have been appropriate. We were in the middle of a recession and did not know when or how long it would last. We are nearing the time that the projects will be funded and this district will end. As Council has given staff direction with its 2000 vote, staff is not in a position to look to the Urban Renewal Agency as a source of possible funding for upcoming projects. I think that you as a council should ask staff for a work session on the Downtown Urban Renewal Agency so that you can be informed about the possibilities of this form of funding to continue on with the great momentum that we have in going in transforming downtown. Think of the things we are striving to achieve. A great street on 8th, high-speed fiber to help connect us and compete in the kind of economic development that we strive for, as well as an improved farmers market that we all love so much. I know there are people who have different opinions on tax-deferred financing, and that is why a work session would be an opportunity for you to weigh in on the pros and cons of this type of funding. The time is getting near to the termination, and if it does terminate, the process for reestablishing it would be difficult. I know that those of you that were on council in 2010 were sincere in your desire for the district to sunset. However, times have changed, as well as the elected members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to address you on this evening. And in closing, I shared with somebody earlier that, Andy Warhol said everybody has their 15 minutes of fame. Well, I just used 6 minutes of mine to talk about supplemental budget.
We got a little left here. Okay, close this and thank you very much. And I'll ask Council if they have any questions. Councilor Brown.
Well, mine is more of a comment than a question. I certainly totally respect John Borofsky and his opinions and his deep knowledge of our budgets, but I have to disagree about keeping the Downtown Urban Renewal District going. It's been 42 years and counting. It'll be a couple more years at least, and maybe 3 before any funds left in the fund are returned to the county for redistribution to the various jurisdictions. The whole point about an urban renewal district, many times they've done many good things, and many times a wrecking ball was used, and it's like our downtown, it just took so long to recover and get reasonably healthy again. And the best way urban renewal district works is you have specific projects, you divert the taxes for those projects, and you have a firm sunset date. And because then the tax money from the more valuable properties goes to all the jurisdictions, not back into the district. It should be only used in the district and not the schools and not the county, not the city's general fund. So I'm sorry, I guess we're just going to have to beg to differ on this, but I feel it's time to let it expire on schedule. We still have the Riverfront Urban Renewal District that's got quite a ways to go. Thank you.
All right, Council President. Urban Renewal.
Urban Renewal Agency President.
Yes.
I move to adopt Resolution 1077, adopting a supplemental budget making appropriations for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Moved in second. Okay, ready for a vote? All those in favor, please indicate. Councilor Zelenka.
Yes.
8 in favor, none in opposition. It passes. Thank you. Next up, we have a series of motions. The first one is proposed by the city manager.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
You adjourn the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency.
Yes, thank you. I'll close the Urban Renewal District meeting and open the City Council meeting. Thank you for the reminder. All right. We'll put that on the table.
Move to authorize an overnight sleeping site permitted under the dusk till dawn ordinance at 1175 Highway 99 in Eugene.
Second.
City Manager, did you have any comments you wanted to make about this before we take questions?
I don't, but we have staff here that can answer questions if you...
Okay. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm generally in favor of the idea, but I did read one of the emails that we got that concerned me, and not so much with, I'll just say, I don't know if you are aware of the email I'm referring to from one of the nearby neighbors to the site off 99 there. The part that concerned me, one was the fights and arguments that were mentioned as an ongoing issue to the neighbors, and number two, most importantly, was the staff's response to the neighbors' concern. So before moving forward, how would you speak to that or suggest that we appropriately as an organization interact with St. Vincent de Paul appropriately to ensure those neighbors that live nearby of the quality of life that they deserve?
I don't know if Mia...
I'll say just a couple of things. Upon receiving those notes, we have touched base with St. Vincent de Paul, and we'll continue a conversation about how...
We can't hear you.
About how during the day those services and the disruption that neighbors are experiencing can be addressed. So we'll start that conversation so that we can look into that. In regard to the activities that will be happening in the evening related to the Dusk to Dawn program, St. Vincent de Paul will have on staff 2 folks that will staff the tent in which folks will be sleeping, and they'll have a system in place to help assist folks that are being disruptive, so they'll move them actually away from the tent and into the Lindholm Center so that it won't be as noisy for neighbors.
Okay. And did you say you're going to engage them with regard to the daytime fights and arguments, or?
Yes, we've let them know, and we'll start a conversation with the staff so that they understand the impact it's having on the neighbors, and we'll help work through that.
Are we in a position to expect them to act on those concerns?
The contract for the Dusk to Dawn program is actually between the county and St. Vincent de Paul, and so we'll contract with the county for these agreements. So contractually, no, but we have really good success in working with St. Vincent de Paul when issues like this arise in other programs like car camping and such, and so
I would think so too. I know many of the folks who work there, and they're wonderful people, and they do great work. I was just surprised by the comment from the neighbor about the response from the St. Vincent de Paul staff there. And I guess I would just say I'm going to be in favor of this, but I'd love to hear from them about how they would think it important to address that comment.
So my comment, go first, Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Mayor.
And then Pauline.
I'm going to support this with reservation, and the reservations that I have are, one, that we have a preponderance of sites that are located in Ward 7. And Ward 7 cannot, and I'm not going to speak for Councilor Syret on this, but since I am in the ward adjacent to Ward 7, that area cannot be the focus ground for every sleeping site that we have in this community. That there needs to be a distribution, an equitable distribution of sleeping sites throughout the community if we're going to be, fair to everybody, and also people who are already in various parts of the city who are sleeping basically illegally, but, are sleeping nevertheless in various parts of the city, all over the city. So, we have to take a more reasonable approach to, equitable distribution of dusk to dawn sites in the future. In addition to that, I think that the second motion that we're going to be entertaining will also be focused on moving a site that was originally located at Martin Luther King Drive back to where it was displaced and put into the River Road area, also adjacent to Ward 7 during the football season. So we need to approach this differently. And I'm hoping that as we move into the new year that we have a different conversation around how we approach dusk to dawn sites and rest stops in the Eugene community as a whole. So just giving you a little bit of heads up on that.
Councilor Polling.
Thank you. I also had the same concerns that Councilor Clark expressed based on not only that one particular email, but some personal contacts that I've had throughout the community. Now, I know under the rest stop ordinance, you as a city manager, Mr. Reese, had the authority to shut one of those down. So is it transferred over to the dusk to dawn sites also?
Yes, it does. So if there's a problem, the city manager can address it immediately.
Okay. So I hope that this particular one, the one that was being set up with St. Vincent's, I hope they have somebody available 24 hours a day that can handle calls or concerns from the immediate neighbors or anybody from the community before it gets to the point, Mr. Reese, before you have to step in and shut it down, because this is another step that the city is taking to assist in trying to come up with some housing for some people. I particularly like this site because it's right there, on the same property where the social services are available to these people that do take advantage of this program. So in that sense, I like it there, but I do have the same concerns that Councilor Clark has expressed based on some of the comments from people in the area.
Councilor Syrett. Councilor Brown.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilor Evans, for your comments. I, like Councilor Evans, will support this site with reservation. So I do want to ask and remind us, when does this ordinance expire?
At the end of March of 2016.
So in theory, this site would only be operational till the end of March, and then it would shut down.
Yes, the council will have to extend the entire ordinance before any of the sites would remain either dusk to dawn or the rest stops as well. That also expired.
And I can definitely imagine.
I'd have to check on the rest stop. I'm not sure that's the date for the rest stop.
Yeah, so we're just talking about the Dusk Till Dawn program. Because we did get some emails raising concern, not necessarily so much about the specific site, but just the feeling amongst residents out in Bethel that they're not being taken into consideration in the way that they should be in terms of the economic development that we're trying to do out there and the fact that Highway 99 is our entry to the city from the airport. And but nonetheless, my understanding is that this particular tent is not really visible from the street, so it's not adding in terms of the look along the boulevard there, and it is, as Councilor Polling pointed out, right next to the service center. So for those reasons, I can support it. And although it's not close to the other current rest stops in Ward 7, it is in Ward 7, which means we still haven't been successful in dispersing these emergency shelter programs throughout the city. I've been an advocate for these programs, but my ward overall shouldn't be asked to take on this burden alone. My neighbors are already disproportionately impacted by illegal camping along the river and along the railroad tracks. So I'm really expecting us to do better in identifying sites in other parts of the city. I really appreciate the county stepping forward to provide a site for the Nightingale Camp and the car camp proposal that we have as our next motion. But I am hoping we can reach out to other agencies like eWeb that has property, I'm sure, around town, perhaps even the University of Oregon, which has expressed interest in helping on these issues in one way or the other, to identify sites that may be appropriate for siting more dusk till dawn locations, not in Ward 7.
Councilor Brown.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got a couple questions here. So this site, dusk to dawn, how many people would be the maximum that will be?
20.
Is it 20, kind of like the rest stops? Is that what's anticipated?
Yes, the tent is 800 square feet and will allow for 20 people to sleep there each night.
All right, thank you. And I'm kind of jumping a little bit onto the next one because it's a related question. Is the next motion refers to a site on Martin Luther King Boulevard. Now, is that a car camp that is currently in existence and is just moving? So would that be, are there any new capacity in that site?
That will provide capacity for 20 new spots for car campers under the dusk to dawn ordinance. So unlike the current car camping program, vehicles won't stay there during the day. They'll be asked to vacate the property.
And these are all people that are currently not at a car camp?
Correct.
Okay. So the grand total will be 40 for these two?
Right.
Is that right? Okay. Well, I just want to make a comment. I mean, this is good. I mean, you know, we make incremental progress. It's not all going to happen at once. But there's still hundreds of people out there. And I'd like to see us do more with this. I mean, you know, we're kind of becoming a model for the rest of the country. People are coming here and looking at Opportunity Village and the rest stops, and I know staff from other cities are approaching and with questions, and all of the current sites are working pretty well, Nightingale and the two rest stops and Opportunity Village, and I just feel like, I really feel we could step it up a little bit, and because at this rate, you know, it'll be like 30 years before everyone's has a tent to sleep under. Really, so seriously, and that's not right. And so, you know, we really need to see that. I think the council needs to step up and look at the list of disposable or, you know, surplus properties and properties that aren't surplus. I can think of like 5 sites right off the top of my head that I think would be suitable, and I really think we need to keep moving on this. And I mean, this is really great. Of course, I'm going to approve. I will vote to approve both of these. It's great, but we really need to do a lot more, and I think we can speed it up because we have good examples. Thank you.
Mayor, can I get in the queue?
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, 2 points. One is this is a good start. I'll support the motion, actually both motions. And as Councilor Brown said, it's a small start, and we need to expand it. The whole point of pilot programs is that you do them as an experiment, see if they work, and if they work, then you replicate them. And so I believe that Opportunity Village has been an outstanding success, and the rest stops have been a success as well. And I think it's time to start expanding them across the city. And I agree with Councilor Evans that they all can't be in Ward 7. And I think we need to start looking at this as we do with the housing dispersal policy, where we start to put these around the entire city, and each ward shares the responsibility of citing one of these in their wards. So I'll be thinking about that and how to proceed with that in the next couple of weeks. But I firmly believe they can't all be in the one place. They need to be spread around the city.
So, thank you. Councilor Taylor, do you have your hand up? Okay. My concern about the language in the are we?
Still on number 1.
We're still. I'll wait for number 2. I'll wait for what I was going to say, but I do want to say this, that I think there are 2 issues around the behavior issues that we received emails about. One is if, apart from the issue of the dusk to dawn, there's some behavior issues that people are concerned about. So that should be separated from this question because it has nothing to do with this question. So that's one issue to talk to St. Benny's about and see if we can give some relief and to really identify where it's happening around there. One of the issues is that they only have supervision of so much of their within their property. They can't be going out and telling people, directing things outside of their property. So that is an issue. And then I think, in my opinion, we may find with this particular project of having the tent there and the dusk to dawn that we have improved behavior because there's so much supervision that's going to be on site. So it may help the whole area even become easier on folks around as opposed to harder. Just something to think about. So I think we're ready to vote on this motion. All those in favor, please indicate. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
8 in favor, none in opposition. It passes. The next motion, before you put it out there, I want to ask this question. Seems to me that there ought to be something in the language that indicates that your intention is to be used for car camping, right? That's the intention.
And a suggestion for Council President, if you add the words "for car camping" right after overnight sleeping site, it would then make that absolutely clear.
Thank you. That would make me feel a lot better. You want to put the motion out?
Good, yeah.
I move to authorize an overnight sleeping site or car camping permitted.
Four.
Like golfing.
I'm sorry. I heard or. Start over. Move to authorize an overnight sleeping site for car camping permitted under the Dusk Till Dawn ordinance at 2411 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Eugene.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor, please indicate. All right. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
8 in favor and none in opposition. Passes. All right. Next up is Councilor Evans' motion. Yes.
I'd like to ask a question before we move into the next set of motions of the city manager.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we haven't had any discussion about allocating additional funding to support our Dusk Till Dawn camping program, have we?
That's true. Where we currently sit is the county is, as Mia mentioned, is contracting for the services with St. Vincent de Paul. And so I believe it's to the Human Service Commission is where those dollars are actually coming from to provide for that. But no, we have not had a conversation about additional resources from the city.
And have we gotten any estimate on how much this is going to cost in terms of those HSC dollars?
Yes.
For operation of the site at the Lindholm Center, that will cost $25,000 through the end of March, which will allow for the site to be open 4 nights a week. The car camping Dusk Till Dawn site at Martin Luther King Boulevard will cost $5,000 through March 31st.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that we're backing up our commitments with the resources they need to be successful.
We, the broader community, are backing us up. Okay.
Good.
So the next motion up is by Councilor Evans.
I move to direct the city manager to prepare for council consideration a resolution declaring the city of Eugene's commitment to a housing first model.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Councilor Polling?
Just so it's perfectly clear to everybody, exactly what would this resolution commit the city of Eugene to?
It hasn't been drafted yet, but the intent is to commit. This will be a policy, a goal. So in terms of what you are legally committed to doing, it won't legally commit you to doing anything. It will be one of those directions to the city manager and staff as we're working on possible solutions that is that is the main policy that we should be trying to achieve. And so the information that you received earlier at your 5:30 work session from Jason, those concepts will be embedded into that resolution, and that's will be the goals that we are trying to achieve.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm not seeing any other questions. You ready to vote on this one?
Mayor,
Yes.
Mayor, this is Alan.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Zelinka. Go ahead.
Could you reiterate what those points were that were brought up in the 5:30 session for me, please, since I wasn't able to be there, just real quickly?
Yes, the housing first is defined as defined by the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development is an approach to quickly and successfully connect individuals and families experiencing homelessness to permanent housing. There are no preconditions or barriers to entry, such as sobriety, treatment, clean criminal history, or service participation requirements. Supportive services are offered to maximize housing stability. And you go down to the next level, and it says, Housing First core components, rapid and streamlined entry into housing, applications not rejected based on credit history, rental history. Use of alcohol or drugs in and of itself is not considered a reason for eviction. Supportive services are voluntary. Tenants have full rights, responsibilities, and legal protections just like anybody else who's a tenant. Practices and policies to prevent lease violations and evictions. And application in a variety of housing models, project-based or scattered. And Jason, when he presented this, made the comment that the intention here is to create a safe and good housing program, but there's still rules. And the people who are going to be in this housing will have to comply with the rules that are in their leases, just like anybody else has to do.
Okay, thank you. That all sounds very appropriate.
Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor, please indicate. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
Okay, 8 in favor and none in opposition. It passes. Up next is Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. You all have the motion in front of you, and I thought of one amendment that I would like to add.
Can I ask something before you go ahead?
Yes.
Councilor Zelenka, do you have a copy of this?
I do.
Okay, because it's a little different than last
Yes,
the last meeting.
It's a little different, and I have one more thing to add, which can be accepted or rejected as friendly or whatever from somebody, but it's relatively innocuous, and I think it could be useful. Move that the City Council invite Mr. Eric Tars or another representative of the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty to meet with a subcommittee composed of at least 2 city councilors, 2 members of the Human Rights Commission, as well as, here's the added part, as well as a representative of the municipal court, in order to explore ways to eliminate barriers that have unintended and negative human rights consequences for those who are homeless, including barriers hindering their access to housing and jobs. And further move to request that the city manager invite 1 or more members each from the Eugene Police Department and the city attorney's office to participate in the subcommittee's discussions.
Moved. Looking for a second? No second.
You got to be kidding me.
Okay.
Alan seconded.
Alan seconded it.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, I'd like to speak to it briefly. This idea has been floating around for a couple of years, and it was brought to our attention again by the Human Rights Commission, and I think it's a really great idea. I met Mr. Tars, and I believe, and the mayor also, about 3 years ago. I was having discussions with the Human Service Commission and other service providers, and he's very knowledgeable. He's worked with many different jurisdictions. He's worked with faith organizations as well as governmental bodies. He is non-confrontational. He's a problem solver. We can discuss, if this motion passes, and I certainly hope it does, we can discuss details. What does that mean? What does the meeting mean? Does that mean in person? Does it mean on the phone, the initial meeting? That might be the way to go. But the main thing is the reason I added the representative from the municipal court is that, they've been working, we got the memo, they've been working on the community justice system, which I believe is part of, Mr. Tars is familiar with those programs around the country, and it would be good to have someone from the court there too. Thanks.
Mayor, can I clarify the motion? Councilor Brown, so when you say a member of the municipal court, I'm assuming by that you mean either the municipal court judge or the judges, somebody that the judge designates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Guys, have your hands up.
I didn't want to name Judge Allen specifically because it would depend on his schedule. I mean, I know he's a very, very busy man, and he may not be able to be the right person.
So I've got Councilor Evans and Councilor Clark in the queue. Councilor Evans.
Could you put me in the queue, please, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to look at offering a broader motion and a substitute motion to Councilor Brown's motion, because while I know that Eric Tars and the National Center on Homelessness and Poverty are experts in this area, I think that there are other experts out there that we should be accessing those resources as well, both on the local level, state, as well as national level. And I don't think that we should limit ourselves to one source or resource on this issue. I think that there are other resources out there. There are resources that we have not accessed that we should access. And I think that this should be inclusive of not just the National Law Center, but also all the other resources that are available, and that we should direct the city manager to do that. And so with that, I'd like to offer a substitute motion, move to direct the city manager to engage the appropriate resources, local, regional, national, with the expertise to address the elimination of barriers, having the unintended negative consequences on the homeless population in Eugene.
For a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay. Did you want to speak? You already spoke to that.
Spoke to my motion.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't support this. We're ready to go down the gopher hole here, to Alice in Wonderland world. The original motion is something very simple, very focused, a reasonable amount of people that could participate in a phone conference. Councilor Evans' motion really opens it up, but without naming who any of these resources would be, national, state, local level. Who are these people? Now you're directing the city manager to go off really on a wild goose chase and just start pulling names out of the air. You're not offering anybody who mine are fairly specific. Mine's got it boiled down to like 2 electeds, 2 people from the Human Rights Commission, from the National Law Center. The idea is not to have it top heavy with lawyers, to have a mix. And so, we're at what? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at 8 people. What you're proposing would expand that greatly, and I don't see that there's any need for that for the initial meeting, initial consultation. Now later, yeah, depending on what happens at the first meeting, that might be reasonable to connect with other people, of course. And that would be appropriate, but I think for a first meeting, this is way overkill, and we're just going down a side path here and making it kind of vague and mushy, and I will not support that motion. Thank you.
Excuse me. Councilor Clark?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciated our conversation at the joint work session the other day, and I appreciate my friendship with Ken, too. He and I have had the opportunity through other means to have some very interesting conversations, and I've learned things in the process. One of the pieces here that's interesting to me is I tend to want to support Greg's motion, but I'm going to need to hear it again if he'll indulge me and accept my apology for needing to hear that again. The concern for me is this. I think we need a broader conversation about this than we're talking about right here. There are more points to this issue that are important to me than simply how do we lessen the burden. So that, for example, the easiest way to lessen the burden, as we've been reminded so many times, is simply not to enforce any of the ordinance against overnight camping and other such things. But that removes an equal protection of citizens for the reason that those laws exist in the first place. And so for me, it's a balancing act, a conversation about the balance that needs to take place between the equal protection of everybody's rights and the reason some of those laws and rules exist, and the inordinate impact on those and the disproportionate impact on others. So I'm not exactly sure how to move forward the best possible way to have a balanced conversation about how to be sensitive to that, but I certainly want to do it. If I could indulge my colleague to read me that again, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, I'd be glad to, Mike. I move to direct the city manager to engage the appropriate resources, local, regional, and national, with the expertise to address the elimination of barriers having unintended negative consequences on the homeless in Eugene.
Councilor Saret.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to support Councilor Evans' motion, prefer that over Councilor Brown's for some specific reasons. I really appreciate the intent of Councilor Brown's motion, but I find it overly prescriptive. Typically, when we ask our city manager to work on an issue, we defer to him on who and how that is accomplished. And while I'm sure Mr. Tarr's nonprofit can offer good technical support, I don't support dictating him to be the expert we consult with. I think we should allow our city manager to take the intent of council to look more deeply into the issue of how our ordinances may have a disproportionate impact on those without shelter, without moving us towards an assumed outcome. So that's why I prefer Councilor Evans' motion, which I think gets us further into the conversation without presupposing where we might end up.
Councilor Pryor.
Thank you. To me, the difference between Councilor Brown's original motion and Councilor Evans' substitute is around who is on it, because the goal sounds pretty similar, which is to explore ways to eliminate barriers. I think that's the goal we all want to accomplish, but what's the way to get there? And the original motion basically said, this is the guy to talk to, that's the only person we need to talk to. And that may or may not be, but I don't know that for sure. Councilor Evans' substitute motion says that may be the right person to talk to, but let's cast a broader net and look for people who might be local, state, or regional who might be a part of this very important conversation. So either way, we move forward with the conversation, and I think our meeting with the Human Rights Commission emphasized the fact we need to have that conversation. But I like the idea of casting a broader net and looking for more certified smart people than just one. And bring some more people into it. Eric Tars may be a part of that group, but I'd like to say who else might be good to be a part of that group.
Councilor DeLink, do you have anything you want to add?
No.
Okay, I've got Councilor Evans again and Councilor Brown.
Well, again, I respectfully disagree with my colleague, Councilor Brown, on this. I think that we have not availed ourselves of all the resources in the community. I'll give you an example, and I'll put them on blast. The University of Oregon has a family resources health division over there. I can't remember the exact title right off the top of my head. Human and Family Services, yes, that has not been involved, to my knowledge, in any of these conversations, and has resources that could be brought to the table as one entity. I think that the National Poverty Law Center is another entity that can be brought to the table, and I think that we need to have staff to be able to do the appropriate research, to deal with the appropriate experts in this area and to bring back the information that we need so that we can proceed in a manner that is comprehensive and is focused and will bring us the kind of solution-based opportunities that I think we can get to if we have the right people at the right place doing the things that need to be done to bring us there. And so I wouldn't, this is like having a doctor. You go and you get, sometimes if somebody tells you you have cancer, you get a second and third opinion. Or if you got other kind of ailments, sometimes you get a second and third opinion. But I think we need to avail ourselves of all the resources that are available and all the remedies that are available, and not just a single entity or a single remedy.
Councilor Brown.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I believe I sent a copy of the original motion to everybody, and the original motion read, Mr. Eric Tars, or another representative of the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty, as well as other legal experts on homelessness and poverty. And I was advised by the city attorney to remove that phrase, and I believe that I agreed, because I think for an initial meeting, we don't need a big room full of lawyers fighting. That is not the intent of the meeting, of this motion. The intent of the motion is to seek solutions and examine best practices, which Mr. Tars is very familiar with. Contrary to what Councilor Surratt said, there is no presupposing of outcomes. I'm not presupposing anything. If we go with Councilor Evans' motion, I'm sorry, I think it'll be meaningless. I think we'll end up with 2 or 3 more sessions of talk. There'll be lots of talk. There won't be any outcomes. It'll get filed away. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. And I don't understand why we have an opportunity to do something succinct and discreet here, like one discrete thing. And why we always seem to opt to the larger, nebulous, cosmic path that so often really is sterile and runs into dead-end wall. I don't understand that, but we just seem to do that time and time again, and that's what we're doing here. We've already talked it to death at the city level and with the Human Services Commission. I participated in, 15 or 20 meetings the last 3 or 4 years, and really very little come of it, and I think it's a really bad idea to support Councilor Evans' motion. Thanks.
Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. I don't know whether we need either of these motions right now. I'm not sure what would be accomplished. I think we know what barriers there are, and we can ask the people who've been working with the homeless people. I would like to ask the city manager, what would you do if we passed one of these motions?
I think if Councilor Brown's motion was passed, on your behalf, we would invite Eric Tars to be a part of a subcommittee meeting with the council, 2 councilors and 2 members of the Human Rights Commission. He's also asked that a member of the Judge Allen or one of his other attorneys would participate, and then he's requested that we would include some members from our staff, which we would. So we would put that group together. With Councilor Evans' motion, what we would do is spend some time looking at who are the local, state or regional and national level experts or folks that deal with these kinds of issues. You talked about the Family and Human Services as one example of that. We would bring those together and try to have a similar kind of a conversation. So we would convene the appropriate folks depending on which motion you pass.
Would we learn anything we don't already know?
I don't know. We generally learn a lot when we bring different people together, so it's hard to know.
I would like to take more time to discuss whether we need such a committee or not, instead of just voting for either motion right now.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Zelenka. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can't strike a happy medium here, and I wonder if Councilor Evans would accept as a friendly to add, including Mr. Tars or another representative from the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty.
Alan, I would accept that as a friendly. I was trying to be inclusive of the National Center with my motion. So
You're fine with that?
I'm fine with that. If you want to tease that out, that's fine with me.
Okay.
And I'd accept that as the...
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to vote on the substitute motion. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
6 in favor. In opposition? 2. It passes. Then we're back to the main motion as substituted. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
7 in opposition. In opposition? 1. 7 to 1. It passes. And with that,
Mayor, who is the one?
pardon?
Mayor, who is the one?
Councilor Brown.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that concludes. One more. Oh, one more.
On the back side.
On the back.
There we go.
Okay.
They stuck me
Councilor
on the
Clark.
back. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I apologize to my colleagues. I'm going to make a minor change to the motion that I sent to you early on advice of our staff, and Denny brought here who suggested better language that would work better, and I'm going to take it. So I move to direct the city manager to begin work on developing a plan to accomplish the following. 1, installation of high-speed fiber in the downtown area, and 2, connecting that fiber network to a wholesale broadband network which will connect Eugene to primary internet connection points on the West Coast, and 3, sufficient budget planning for and public involvement process 2, determine the appropriate downtown public space enhancements, specifically in addition parks in the parks blocks. The work should include both a plan amendment for the downtown urban renewal plan and funding options for those parts of the work that cannot be funded with urban renewal dollars. The manager should bring those options back to the council and the urban renewal agency for approval in January. And if I get a second, I'll speak to that.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you, Mayor. We've had presentations on all of this on several occasions, and many people in our community have been working on a lot of these issues for a long time. And I hate to use something that's so trite here, but speed matters. I think in a lot of cases we have good plans set, especially with regard to connectivity in our downtown, and other places in the country are moving, and that changes our market position. I think we ought to get ahead of the curve. As we see in our tech sector downtown, we see, and throughout our community, we see critical mass building, and this is the sort of thing we need to help it get there. And we've all spoken very highly of the idea, and I wanted to try and, if you will, kill two birds with one stone here by combining a couple of things many of us have supported over time, and try and put them into a plan to move forward quickly. I will say that I've been a big supporter of this for a very long time, and it's my opinion that what water and power facilities and capacity were to the last century, internet facilities and connectivity and capacity will be to the next one. And with this particular language, we not only massively increase our capacity and our tech sector's capacity in our downtown core to put ourselves amongst elite cities in the nation with connecting 125 or more buildings in our downtown with very high, ultra high speed internet connections. If we connect to the main hub, which the second part addresses, we will give ourselves the capacity, instead of for 1 gig ultra high speed fiber, the potential for 100 gig. We would put ourselves among the 5 or 10 cities in the country that have that capacity, and at a very inexpensive price. as it stands right now. And in advance of 2021, I can barely think of anything that we could do that would be better as a statement about how we're being innovative as a community than to have our tech sector doing so well in our downtown. We've also talked about how we want to do things with the park blocks beyond our current plan. I'd like to have the manager come back to us with a plan for engaging the public and looking at how to enhance our downtown park blocks district with covered farmers market, with several of the things we've talked about over time that can really make that also a jewel of our community. So I hope you'll support this motion.
Got Councillor Evans, Pryor, Taylor, and Cyrette in the queue, but City Manager?
Councilor Brown also.
Mayor, can I be in the queue too, please?
Brown, too, and Zelenka. But before we begin, I'd like to understand how this is different than what you already had moving in the city.
What we don't have moving in the city is looking at anything about the renewal of the Urban Renewal District or expanding the Urban Renewal District from where it sunsets. So we haven't done any work on that as staff moving forward. What we are doing is taking a look at high speed. As you know, we've piloted a couple programs downtown. What's different about this, those are providing 1 gigabyte service, and the techies will know a lot more than what I know about that, but that provides much greater capacity at a cheaper price now. Our intent would be to expand that. My understanding what this does is get an exponentially much greater speed and capacity, and so that's new, but it fits in kind of what we're trying to do. As far as the parks blocks, we've had general conversations about wanting to reimagine the parks blocks. There's been some conversations about downtown, the year-round farmers market, but there isn't a planning process in place for that at this moment.
Councillor Evans?
On first blush, I like Councillor Clark's motion. However, we've got 3 things in one motion here. And on top of that, I don't think we've had an opportunity to have full analysis and discussion on the particulars of each pieces of this motion. I would like us to have a work session that focuses on the specifics around this motion, specifically, the installation of the high-speed fiber, the financing piece, all the other, opportunities that are encompassed in Councillor Clark's motion. I would feel more comfortable if we had a way to process this in terms of a council discussion around a work session, or maybe 2 work sessions that address these issues.
Councillor Pryor?
Yeah, in fact, in kind of keeping with that conversation, for me, there's 2 elements here. The first one is what it is we want to do, and the second one is how we do it. Speaking specifically to the first part, which is what we want to do, I love it. Absolutely love it. Being able to convert 1 gigabyte to 100 gigabytes relatively cost effectively is just massive in terms of an economic development tool, in terms of providing service for downtown and for conceivably the rest of the community. I mean, it's a duh for me in terms of, yeah, you want to do it. I think also for me, something that's been extremely important is the notion of the park blocks. I've talked about it before. It's interesting that folks feel that the center of town, somebody even mentioned that the center of town was Kesey Square. No, the founding fathers made the center of town the park blocks. It's always been the center of town, but it is dismissed so readily because it's not effective. It's not good engagement space because it's not been well designed and it's not conducive right now. So people kind of tend to forget about it and ignore it. I want to see us make a significant commitment and investment to the park blocks as being the kind of space it really needs to be. And I can't even talk about it without recognizing there would be a price tag to do that. So that then gets into the how. And what's being proposed is this or is this not an appropriate use for urban renewal funds? And John came up here and said, all the things that have been kind of going through my mind is if there are appropriate urban renewal projects that are appropriate for the use of urban renewal funds, we should at least be willing to look at them. I don't want to just keep an urban renewal district going just to keep it going. But if there are appropriate projects within the downtown that could be funded with urban renewal money, I'm willing to talk about it. I'm willing to look at it. This motion tries to begin working on developing a plan. If part of that was having a work session, I think that's a great idea because this is just the beginning of the conversation. I would see inherent in this having a work plan or a work session to talk about it. Yeah, I think we absolutely have to have a work session to talk about how this might work. But I'm extremely supportive of the what, and I would like to learn more about the how. If this is the how that works, that's great, but there may be other hows we might want to talk about as well. I don't see this as being in conflict with that. So I'm willing to support it the way it's phrased, begin work on developing a plan. It doesn't commit us, but it says let's work in this direction. And hey, from my standpoint, 100 gigabyte internet and improvement to the park blocks to me are something I want to go full steam on. So I'm supportive of it as far as it goes.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. I think there's way too much in this motion and way too fast also. It's discussing two completely different things. I think a work session on each of them might be appropriate. I think connecting everything to the internet is a good idea. Chattanooga, Tennessee has every house and every business connected, and that's a good thing to work toward. But I won't vote for this big combination motion at all. I think really a work session on each of these might be appropriate. But if you just want to change the motion to start looking at how we could connect everyone to the internet, I would vote for that much. Thank you.
Councilor Cyrett?
Yeah, so I have kind of the same problem with this motion I had with Councilor Brown's in the prior round. I wish it was a work session poll rather than asking us to pass a motion that combines a number of different things into one piece before our last business, before the break. So I think, you're right, we've gotten updates on the downtown fiber, but there's some technical issues here that I'd want to get questions answered about and really understand what it is we were launching. And then in regard to the conversation about public spaces, again, I think the intent is great, and I also agree that the park blocks need some attention. But I think that, we have a downtown plan. There's the downtown solution work that the mayor and councilor Pryor and myself have started, and then we have a parks and open space plan. So I'd want to know how this piece related to those other things. If this is an attempt to get us to reconsider the sunset of the downtown urban renewal district, I think we should hold a work session on that. I think that is a conversation worth having because I think even just this evening we've gotten some ideas from more than one community resident about how we might want to think about that. So I probably will not support this motion tonight, but I would support a work session on both of these topics. Councilor Brown.
Yeah, I agree with some of the foregoing comments. It's too much stuff bundled into one document. I don't have too much of a problem with the first two because that's asking the manager to begin work on developing a plan. Number 3, I have big time problems with because it says here the work should include both a plan amendment, a downtown urban renewal plan amendment. I looked at our downtown urban renewal plan. Let me quote you something from page 7 and 8. Quote, it is the intent of this plan that, this plan meaning ours, Eugene Downtown, with the exceptions listed below, there be no amendments, substantial or otherwise. Since the statutes require a description of substantial amendments, the plan defines all amendments as substantive amendments other than the following. So here are the things that are not considered a substantial amendment. Number one, amendments to correct clerical errors or similar errors. Number two, amendments to respond to a decision by a court or state agency if someone challenges the 2010 amendment and this plan is remanded. So if the manager brought back a proposed plan amendment, that is it's not supposed to. There are not supposed to be any substantial amendments. This is in our plan. I suppose it would probably be legal, but it would really violate the feeling of the town and the staff and the majority of council at the time this plan was last amended in 2010. And when you have it would be regarded as a substantial amendment. There's not supposed to be any substantial amendments, but according to ORS 457. It requires that an urban renewal plan include they define what constitutes substantial amendments, and that requires the same notice, hearing, and approval procedures required by the original plan. So it's going to be a lot more complicated. And if it was phrased to say maybe the work could include a plan for, public involvement process for park blocks improvements and funding options for those parts of the work that cannot be funded with urban renewal dollars. That's okay. The current plan has allocated $500,000 for park blocks improvements for Saturday Market. That's in the plan. There were three main things in 2010. LCC, park blocks, and what was the other one? The parking garages. Funding the parking garages.
Thank you.
Those three.
Councilor Zelenka?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The fiber project and the improved park block project sound good and are both probably important projects. But at this point, I'm not necessarily in favor of reversing the council's expressed intent of letting the downtown urban renewal district expire at the end of this next year in 2016. I'll remind the council that extending the urban renewal district is done by ordinance and is therefore would be referable. And I think that these projects, if they do merit public support from the community should be asked, and if they garner a majority of public support, we should proceed with them. As well, the urban renewal district is not the only way to fund these projects. For instance, you could do a GO bond and have them voted on by public if that's something that the community wants to support on these two particular projects. So with that in mind, I would like to make a substitute motion that would have the city manager schedule a work session to inform the city council on a downtown high-speed fiber project and improved park blocks and all the mechanisms for funding these projects.
Mayor.
Second.
There's second, moved and seconded. Okay, Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. It's interesting because the semantical fight here is really an interesting one. We're fundamentally in agreement on the work that needs to be done, and there's some controversy over how to pay for it. But the politics of it are the really strange part, and I find that unfortunate. I asked and consulted with and did the due diligence part of speaking with staff, both the manager and with the city attorney. Rather than just drop something like this on my colleagues, I tried to do it the responsible way of bringing everybody in to talk about it, giving advance notice on it, and doing the things that we do. My initial questions of the city attorney were based around the idea that we already had this presentation just the other day, and I heard the mayor's comments as well about the intelligence of this, and I've heard my colleagues, and I agree with that. And for me, and after speaking with several industry folks, the speed at which we accomplish this matters. If we endlessly debate it and don't do anything about it, we lose that competitive advantage. And so it's important for us to do it as quickly as possible. I simply wanted to provide an idea for how we might move forward with a couple of things we've all talked about wanting to do. Now, the motion is specific to the manager that we need him to come back with a plan, with a process. My initial question was, hey, what's the first step? Let's just have the motion for that. And then I said, but let's also have a second motion that says something a little slower. What does a scope of work look like here? Let's have a work session on it. My point being, that's what this motion was intended to be. It's very clear. It says go and assemble the specifics of how to accomplish the things we've talked about and come back to us with that plan. That means come back in a work session. So in essence, the language here already says, come back to us with the specifics in a work session. It's a scoping of work. That's what this motion is intended to accomplish, and I'll be happy to change the last word there if it's confusing that says the Urban Renewal Agency for a work session in January rather than approval. If that is, if somebody wants to offer that for, well, you can't because Alan's motion's on the table, but this is the point of this. We don't need a substitute motion. This was my intent in the first place. I'll happy to amend it to accomplish that.
Okay, ready to vote on...
Mayor, can I get in the queue?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, my problem with the Councilor Clark's motion was that it only had us look at one way to fund this, which is urban renewal. And I think there's other ways, and we should discuss that. And the motion that I put forward allows us to have the conversation that Councilor Clark wants us to have, but have it with a broader array of funding mechanisms. So I think that's really the only difference between the two mechanisms. And I think this motion really is about the urban renewal district and not having it sunset, but couched in terms of these two probably worthy projects.
Okay, let's see about the substitute motion. I'm going to cut us off at 10, so I'd like us to get this done. Okay, all those in favor of the substitute motion, please indicate. 1, 2, 3. Councilor Zelenka is for.
Yes.
In opposition? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to vote in support of it, so it's 5 to 4.
Politics wins.
Do we know what that motion actually says?
We go back to the main motion as substituted.
Right, and if Councilor Zelenka could read it one more time.
Councilor Zelenka, read it one more time.
I move to have the city manager schedule a work session to inform the city council on a downtown high-speed fiber project and improving the park blocks and all mechanisms for funding these projects.
Okay, all right. And we have to go back to do the last, vote on the last motion as amended. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Councilor Zelenka?
Yes.
8, it passes. And with that, we're through the business of the evening.